talk about what happened yesterday. Now, I've gone around the corner and I've been listening to the different preachers. And except for one person, no one's talking about what happened here in London. And I'm angry. And we need to talk about what happened yesterday. Now, I know Muslims don't want to talk about it, because there is this narrative here that this has nothing to do with Islam. And we're getting that week after week after week, are we not? Last week, we talked about the Manchester bomber, which had just happened 6 days before that. And yet we still got the same narrative, that this has nothing to do with Islam. Now, we were called hate preachers last week. And the week before, we were called hate preachers. And we're going to be called hate preachers today, because we're asking the question that the politicians are not asking. No politician would dare say what I'm going to be saying next. And the difficulty is, outside of Speaker's Corner, there's no other place we can talk about it. We are not permitted to say that this is Islamic. We are not permitted to say that these were Muslims that killed those 7 people yesterday and wounded 48. Unless you're at Speaker's Corner, where we have the protection of freedom of speech. We cannot say that. Now let me ask you, the crowd that's here right now, how many of you believe that these were Muslims that did what they did yesterday? So a few hands.
They're not Muslims. They're not Muslims.
Okay, what makes you think they're not Muslims?
They're called Khawarij. Khawarij, their traits were there since the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They're the ones that had to do with the assassination of the 4 rightly guided caliphates, yeah? When it comes down to it, Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, when people like them rise, you should fight them, yeah? Anjem Chowdhury and Muhajirun are in prison. They probably caused it. If they were not in HMP and they were extradited to Saudi Arabia...
Okay, what's your name? What's your name, sir?
Hassan.
Hassan, do you believe that Anjem Chowdhury is a Muslim?
Huh? We believe that he's got traces of
Is he a Muslim?
They've got traits of the Khawarij. They're Khawarij.
Okay, is he a Muslim? That's what we're asking.
Direct question.
This is a valid question. Are these 3 that were killed yesterday, when they came and as they were knifing people, they say we are doing this for Allah? Now, why would they be saying they are doing it for Allah unless they were doing it in the name of Islam?
Okay, Jay, here's the criteria for someone to be Muslim. Here's the criteria for someone to be Muslim. They must believe in Allah. They must believe in the prophets. They must believe in the Qur'an. They must follow the Muhammad. So, one of the criteria for someone to be Muslim, they have to go through the Qur'an.
He's bringing up. Here's a good question. What's your name? Hi, we know each other. Okay, you're from many years ago. Now, Haider, let me ask you, how would you define Islam? So you say this is an interpretation of Islam. How would you know that it's an interpretation of Islam? Where do you get that idea from?
Because they are claiming to be representatives of Islam.
Okay.
At the same time, people have different interpretations, just like you have different interpretations of Christianity.
But where would a Muslim go to, and where would a Christian go to find out whether or not their claims are correct?
There's multiple possibilities.
Give me some possibilities.
Wouldn't be one possibility
You could go to your Iman, you could go to the Bible, you could go to the Qur'an, you could read academic, you could read theological, you could read a whole different way, and you'll have family and influences like anything else.
Okay, Haider, now that's a good one. You said they would go to the Qur'an, we would go to the Bible. Do the rest of you agree with that? Is that a good place to go to define who you are? If you're a Christian, should you go to the Bible to support what you're saying? Those who are Christians here.
It would still be unfair to interpret that as being a literal interpretation of a specific text here or there. It's always interpretation.
Yeah,
understood. And
because of that, you go to Muhammad and you go to Jesus.
So who else do you go to besides the Bible? Who do we go to as Christians?
As a Christians, we go to Jesus.
Model the Bible. Who do we go to?
Jesus.
So whatever Jesus says, whatever Jesus does, we go to know how we're to interpret the Bible.
You don't actually have any direct statements from Jesus that were written down when he was alive.
No.
Right? Everything was written down minimum 30 years after his death.
Well, maximum 60.
Minimum what?
Minimum 30 15, actually minimum 15 years if you go to
15,
Paul's letter.
yeah.
Not according to Jesus.
Okay, so here we go. We would go to Jesus to find out, as Christians, who we're to model, right? Or who is the model for us?
don't have that.
Where do Muslims go for their model?
Muhammad.
Okay, how about anybody else?
Muhammad.
How about Hassan? Should we go to Hassan today?
No, no.
No, not Hassan.
They cannot go to imams.
So
They
we don't
cannot
go to people today.
No.
Every Muslim has to go back to Muhammad, right?
Yes.
Not to, well, the Shiites would go to Ali.
No, well, Shiites are an innovated sect. 72 sects of the hellfire.
I love it.
There's 73 sects. Muhammad received one of said Islam will be divided into 73 sects. Christianity 72 sects. Judaism 71 sects.
So-
now, if he was a
Okay,
liar,
that's your opinion. Let's move on back.
not opinion.
So-
I don't want people's opinion today. I want to know, how can we define what a true Muslim is, and how can we find what we would claim to be a true Christian?
Yeah.
Because those are the two we're looking at today.
Let me respond to
On
that.
this
So-
issue of violence.
So, for us to define who is Muslim, we cannot go to the Prime Minister of England. We cannot go to the Theresa May. We cannot go to the Queen. We cannot go to the Muslims and Speaker's Corner. We have to go to Muhammad.
And I would say we would
have
not go to Haider either,
Yes.
because none of them would claim to be Muslims.
Yeah.
Yet Theresa May is very clear that these were not Muslims. Did you hear Theresa May say that? Yes. She is very clear that Salman Abedi is not a Muslim. That
She's deluded.
that Khalid Massoud is not a Muslim. What was her criteria for coming to that conclusion? Where did she go to find out that that was correct or not?
Probably.
The historian,
It's
yeah?
not in
A
correspondence
non-Muslim
with
historian by the
Okay,
name of
what is the Muslim faith again? We're going to go in circles on this, Haider.
That's what she said.
Prophet before our
And
time.
to be fair, the same type of criteria can be applied.
Absolutely.
You know, Breivik in Norway.
And when it comes to violence versus peace, we would demand that everybody hold us to the New Testament, the gospel of Jesus
New
Christ,
Testament.
modeled by
Jesus
Jesus
never said New
himself.
Testament.
You notice I didn't say Old Testament, because I don't go, and no Christians here would go
It's
to
the
the Old
Torah.
Testament
It's the Torah.
to find out how we're to act today,
But Jesus said, I
because
come
of
not to
Matthew
alter
5, okay? Now, let's go back. Hassan, you're the Muslim here, and as a Sunni Muslim, you have to go back to your Quran.
Yes.
So
and-
what
and
these
also-
men today-
Also to the Salaf. Yeah, we go to the predecessors of Islam who attached the knowledge to the
Okay, stay here, Haider. You're good.
three rightly guided generation.
Okay.
The three rightly guided generations are those of Muhammad, peace be upon him, the companions, and those that followed them, and those that followed them. Those are rightly guided. The Salaf al-Salihin are there. And
Give me the names. What are the men you're going to?
Medina.
So, which men are you going to? Give me the names.
He will go to Abu Bakr.
Taymiyyah, Al-Tabari, when it comes down to hadiths like Bukhari, Ibn Majah, when it comes down to
Would you go to Abu
So
Bakr?
these are 9th and 10th century
Right.
scholars.
yeah.
But Muhammad died in the 7th century. So these are 200 to 300 years later.
All the way to the companions and those that followed the
We don't have anything written by the companions.
Hassan al-Basri, Anas bin
We don't have anything written by the companions. Nothing is written down that is extant today from any of the companions of the Prophet, including Ubay ibn Ka'b or Ibn Masud or Ibn Musa or Zayd ibn Thabit. None of their material is written down today.
What is hadith?
Hadith is Al-Bukhari. He is the earliest. But look when he died, 870 AD. Muhammad died in 632. That's 240 years later.
Narration, yeah? If there's a missing link, a chain, if there's a link missing to the chain to Muhammad,
There's 240 years of missing link. There's 240 years of missing chain.
That is a lie.
Do you trust 240 years of oral tradition?
Jay, here's the
Look what
problem.
Haider said here. Haider said here,
Haider.
Haider, the man that has just left, what was his criteria? You only have from 15 years to 40 years. But who were the people that he was referring to? He was referring to Paul. He was referring to John. He was referring to Matthew. Did John and Matthew know Jesus Christ?
Yes, they did know Jesus. They spent
Did they
time
live
with
with him
Jesus.
for the last 3 years of his
Yes,
life?
they did. They did.
Did they hear what he said?
They did what he said. They recorded what he said. They lived what he said.
They wrote down what Jesus said, They wrote down what Jesus did within 40 years to 60 years. They were
After the
still
death of
living,
Jesus.
and they were the authors of those two Gospels.
Yeah.
Now,
Where's the gospel of
did
Jesus?
Al-Bukhari, did he ever live at the time of Muhammad?
Al-Bukhari is from Uzbekistan. He's from 9th century. He died in 817. 817, with not having the Arabic first language, he was Persian speaking. He traveled to Saudi Arabia, Palestine, and he heard what people translated, what people narrated. There were approximately 600,000 narrations, hadiths, yet he compiled only 7,295 of them.
So 7,300 out of 600,000, he threw away 98% and only kept 2%. So even him, Al-Bukhari, that he's referring to, is just 2%.
He lived far away from Muhammad. He never met with Muhammad. He never met with caliphs. He never met with people whom Muhammad spent time
because
with.
he lived 240 years later.
Yeah.
2.5 centuries later, he knew which were authoritative, he knew which were weak. And why did he throw out 98%?
Oh, well, he thought they weren't reliable. I would love to know what
How
was
did he
inside.
know which were reliable since he was never there?
That is called welcome to the world of Islam. Welcome to the world of Islam. Those things happen in Islam.
Okay.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. For us to understand what does Islam teaching, we go to Muhammad and then we go to Qur'an. We go to Muhammad and we go to the Qur'an and then we say what does it teaching about non-believers, because we want to see what happened and why happened last night.
Are you a Muslim? Okay, what happened yesterday? What happened yesterday?
7 people have been killed and you are saying forget that?
Move out of the camera, move out of the camera. You're from the camera. We're talking about what happened yesterday just a few miles from here. So don't say forget about it. We are angry.
Yes.
And we need to talk about it.
Yes.
And in order to know why these men did what they did, we need to go back and see what their authority was. Who their authority was. Why they did what they did. So let's go back.
Very,
and
very
let's
short
see
answer.
what Muhammad said. Let's see what Muhammad did. Let's see what the Quran says about these actions.
So, short answer, why they did it? Because they follow a book called Quran and they follow a man called Muhammad. That is the short answer. That is the short answer. For long answer, why they did it, let's look at who are those people. So we are talking about 3 people who drove a van into people, got out the van, and then start knifing people and killing them.
Let me ask people here. Let me ask people here. Since the time of Ramadan. Now Ramadan has been going for 1 week, has it not?
Yeah, this is the second
Ramadan
Sunday.
has now been on for a little over a week.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of Ramadan, how many people have been killed by Muslims around the world?
So, 453 people killed by Muslims just during the 1 week, just during the Ramadan. Let's look at them. First group of the people were killed on the eve of Ramadan are the Christians in Egypt. 29 Christians were killed in Egypt just the eve of Ramadan.
Now let me ask you, in the same time period, how many Christians have killed other people because of their God?
None of the Christians.
Zero. So in the last week, 452 most people have been killed by Muslims during the time of Ramadan, and this man wants to talk about 9/11. He wants to take it back to 2001. And here's an Englishman getting upset with him. And we should all get upset with him. We're not here to talk about 9/11. We're here to talk about yesterday. It's not even 24 hours. And he still wants to get off the subject.
And he wants to say, forget it. 7 people had a favorite color. 7 people had a life. 7 people had a family. But because 3 people They had to give up their life. That is not acceptable. Your Quran and your Prophet is not acceptable anymore, sir. You need to move
so
on.
we're going to ask, and these are going to get Muslims angry. We know that the questions we're asking will get Muslims angry. They would get me angry if I was a Muslim.
Yes.
But this is the only place we can ask it.
Yes.
We cannot ask it at 10 Downing Street. We cannot ask it at BBC. What we're going to talk about today is not being talked about anywhere else. You are not permitted to talk about what this area. So let's go ahead and unpack it. Hatun, where is it in the Quran that we need to go to find out what these men did yesterday? Is there any support in the Quran for what these men did?
Quran contains 6,236 verses, and then you've got 149 verses support the violence in the Quran. 149 verses. So we can go to Surah 9.
So there's 149 verses in the Quran that talk about violence. 149 verses that refer to violence after violence after violence. Now, what are some of these verses?
So we could go to Surah 9, verse 29, Surah 9, verse 5, Surah 47.
So Surah 9, verse 5 is the sword, the verse of the sword.
Yeah.
That's called the sword verse. It's a very well-known verse. Slay the unbelievers wherever ye find them. Besiege them. Lay in wait for them with every kind of ambush. Does that sound like a peaceful verse to you?
But here's the thing, Jay.
Oh, now he wants to know what time or who.
Okay, here's the thing.
Using the Quran to promote Christianity.
I am using the Quran to challenge the Islamic teaching.
Read
It is amazing.
Read chapter 19 right now in front of everyone. Read the whole of chapter 19 right now.
It is
Why is he
amazing.
scared to read these verses? And why is he trying to change the subject? To go to Surah Miriam. Surah Miriam does not talk about the violence we're talking about. And the reason why these men did what they did is because of what the Quran says. You don't have to go any farther than the Quran. Just read these verses in the Quran. Surah 9, Ayah 5. Surah 9, Ayah 29.
But let me look at Surah 9, ayat 111.
Surah 9, Ayah 111.
And then see if you can.
Ayah 8. Read verse 60, ayah 8, because I know you never read them verses.
I am sure I have read it more than you. So, Surah 9, verse 111.
Go ahead, read it.
Would you like to read it, Jay?
Okay, 111 says, Indeed, Allah has purchased from believers their lives and their properties, for that they will have paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah, so they kill and are killed. It is a true promise binding upon him in the Torah and the gospel in the Quran. And who is truer to his covenant than Allah? So rejoice in your transaction which you have contracted, and it is that which is the great attainment. For what? They kill and are killed.
That's a peaceful verse.
That's a peaceful verse.
Of course
If
it
you
is.
read the whole surah of 9, this is the last surah that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. Why is that significant? It was revealed in 632. What does that mean?
It discredits what was given before. It discredits the previous revelation because it abrogates it. So, Surah 9 verse 111, kill in the name of Allah and killed in the cause of Allah. That's what's happening to Muslims. Now, because it is Ramadan, they are fasting whole day, they are trying to be obedient good Muslim, and one of the way they can be good Muslim is practicing jihad. For them to practice jihad, they have to go to their holy book, Quran. Surah 9, verse 111 is only one of them.
I want you to read Surah 47, Ayah 4 to 6. Because if you want to see how you're supposed to practice jihad, read chapter 47, which is also a Medinan chapter. Therefore, it's more authoritative than anything found in Meccan surahs. And what does it say? Well, let's start from verse 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Those who disbelieve and avert people from the way of Allah, he will waste their deeds. And those who believe and do righteous deeds and believe in what has been sent down upon Muhammad.
So you have your disbelievers and your believers. It's defining the two, right?
Yeah. And it is the truth from their Lord. He will remove from them their misdeeds and among their condition.
Okay,
Verse 3.
so here we got for the first three verses,
Let me show you something.
you have the definition of a believer and a disbeliever. Now let's go to verse 4.
Listen to me.
Sir, hold on.
Stop it.
And this
They're
is
gonna try to
because
make a runaway with
those who disbelieve follow falsehood, and those who believe follow the truth from their Lord. Does Allah present the people their comparisons? So, verse 4.
Now we go to verse 4. The first three verses define who a believer is and who an unbeliever is. Now let's read verse 4.
So far you are unbeliever, Jay. So, when you meet those disbelieve, strike their neck.
Did you hear that?
When you
meet the disbelievers,
strike
off their
neck.
necks, cut off their heads.
When you have
There it is in the Quran.
When you have inflicted slaughter upon them, then secure bonds and either favor afterwards or runs them until war lays down their burdens.
Okay, now continue on to verse 5 and 6.
He will guide them and amend their condition and admit them to paradise, which he has made them to know.
Did you hear that? So those who slay the unbelievers, if they should be killed while they're slaying them, they will go to paradise. There it is in the Quran.
Do this for me.
Happy days for those who slay the infidels,
just person?
those who slay the
Are you a just
unbelievers.
person? Are you a
And this
just
is the
person?
only verse in the
Are you a just
Quran
person?
that gives an
Go to
assurance of
chapter
salvation.
16, verse 8.
Can you now see why
You're unjust.
so many young
You're
men
unjust.
are
Thank
now
you, sir.
volunteering
You're unjust.
themselves?
God
And
will
yes,
show you
they may
properly.
be misfits.
If you're just,
I would
you'll read
imagine
the whole
many of
Quran.
I have read the whole
Right.
Quran. I have read the whole
Much of a
Quran.
future for
And
them.
I have got
You
nightmares
don't
because
have
of the
much of
Quran.
a
You're not
future.
just.
Are
You
you
do
not
your
going to
part.
volunteer
You're not just.
so that you can go
You've got
straight
this
to
guy
paradise?
getting you.
It doesn't matter what you did the day before or even the hour before. As long as you die in the cause of Allah, as long as you slit the throats of the non-believers, you're going straight to heaven. Now let me show you. Let me show you.
You're misinterpreting
I want to
the Quran.
show you what
You're
ISIS has
misinterpreting
done.
You're misinterpreting the
I want
Quran.
to show you what ISIS has done in the last few months.
This is my list.
You're misinterpreting. You're misinterpreting.
In the last few months, ISIS has come out
You explain us.
two
Sir.
Yeah, well, then
different
pull it on me.
publications.
So,
Now let's look at these.
let me hold this, Jay. Let me hold
You
it.
can go and see if I made this up.
ISIS
It's
is wrong.
Rumaya.
ISIS is
Look
wrong.
at Rumaya. This is their new magazine. This one here just came out last month. This one came out in December. Just terror tactics, telling Muslims how to slay with a knife, showing how you should use knives, saying that you should cut the
So
throat.
just listen.
You need to read it. It is
I know
very
ISIS follows
gruesome.
Islam, sir. ISIS
It's
follows
showing
Muhammad.
how you can kill people quickly by using knives. And that whenever you do it, you must end by cutting off the necks. Why should they cut off the necks?
Because
Where does that come from?
it comes from the Quran. They have to follow teachings of Quran. They have to follow
47
Muhammad.
ayah 4. Right out of the Quran. So if you want to see why ISIS is putting this out, you need to read the Quran. It is the Quran that gives them the authority. It is the Quran that none of you want to read, that no one wants to talk about. And that's the elephant in the room. We're not permitted to say that this is Quranic. Outside of Speaker's Corner, I cannot say what I've just said. So therefore, you go back and read this. You see if this is not in the Quran.
In the Bible,
Now let's look at this.
Here's the thing, Jay.
Now the newest one, they're now saying how to use trucks, how to get special trucks that can go up on curbs so that you can go and knock people down on the curbs. Where do you think this comes from? Surah 8, ayah 60.
They didn't have cars, yes.
you're the goy. You're the goy.
I'm the killer. So now they're saying I am the killer. Isn't that interesting? Because I'm bringing this up here at Speaker's Corner because we're showing you the root of where these ideas come from. The scripture, where they're now going. I'm now the guilty party.
Surah verse 16. And prepare against them whatever you are able of power and steed of war.
Steeds of war. What does steeds of war mean?
Whatever you have, whatever you can
Whatever
find.
you have at your disposal. If it means horses or trucks, you use whatever you can. And why do you do it?
By which you may terrify the enemy of Allah.
To terrify the enemy.
And your enemy and others beside them.
Where do you think the word terrorism comes from? It comes right out of that verse. To terrorize the enemy. This is the Qur'an telling them to do that. You steeds of war. That means trucks or cars or anything at your disposal.
Whatever you find
and it's right in the Qur'an. But you've never heard this before, have you? No Muslim will tell you this. No politician will tell you this.
60.
Read verse 8 by 12. I will throw fear in the hearts of those who disbelieve. Then strike the necks and strike them of each finger. But I'm talking about steeds of war. 860 is about steeds of war. Folks, can you see what we've done right now?
We have a good thing and bad thing.
Now let me ask you, Hatun. In the last 2 months,
You are the killer.
in the last 2 months, at Westminster, that's just a few miles from here, we had Khalid Massoud come, and he took a car and he struck down 5 people and killed another, 4 people and killed another with a knife. Both the striking down with the car is found in Surah 8, Ayah 60, and striking with the knife is found in Surah 47, Ayah 4.
I think it will be shameful if Muslims are disagreeing. Those people who follow the religions of Islam, which means who follow the Quran and who follow the teachings of Muhammad, says actually it has nothing to do with Islam. So those people are just taking the verses and trying to be faithful and good Muslims. They are going back to the Quran and they are going back to the teachings of Muhammad and they are practicing. Because Allah promised them wonderful paradise. What else you want, Jay?
Now let me ask you this. But there are many Muslims here, even in our crowd today, who do not agree with what these 3 men did. And what Khalid Massoud did a few weeks ago.
Jay, we've got wonderful Muslim friends. I've got friends who can give up their kidney for me. Yet, I've got Muslim friends who can cut my throat off. 2 weeks ago, I got a note which was telling I am blaspheming. So, Muslims are very, very different individuals. You've got lovely Muslims versus you've got Muslims who follow the Quran. So, when I look at Islam, I don't look at my lovely Muslim friends or bad Muslim friends. I look at the teachings of Allah, and I look at the teachings and lives of Muhammad.
And why do you do that, Hatun?
Because that is their source, that is their primary source.
This is their revelation.
Muslims are accountable to follow the Quran and they must follow the teachings of Muhammad. Obey Allah through Quran, obey Muhammad through Sunnah. That's what they do.
It makes this claim. Every Muslim must follow Allah and His Messenger. Must follow Allah and His Messenger.
Obey Allah
you must do what Muhammad did. So what did Muhammad do to those who opposed him? To those who caused mischief in the land? In Surah 5, Ayah 33. What did Muhammad do to the Jews who opposed him in Medina in 624, in 625, and in 627?
I would love to say Muhammad, who's supposed to be example to all mankind, invited those people and had a discussion. But tradition tells me, no, that didn't happen. Muhammad got rid of those people by ordering them to be killed.
Well, the first 2 tribes, no. The Banu Kainuka, the Banu Nadir, he threw them out of Medina because they would not support him. The 3rd tribe, the Banu Qurayza tribe, there was 800 men in that tribe.
One Saturday afternoon, they had been killed and their wives was taken, and in 2017 that language would be, people raped those wives.
They were made slaves.
They remain slaves. And
that which your right hand possesseth in the Quran is what it's called. That's in Surah 4, Ayah 24. But the other 800 men had their throats slit, every one of them in one afternoon. That's in Surah 47, ayah 4. So Muhammad was doing what the Quran said. Muhammad was modeling what the Quran says.
And today, Muslims, lots of Muslims are practicing what Quran teaches alongside of what Muhammad did. Because remember, their sources, Quran and Muhammad. Their sources is not the Prime Minister of England. Their sources is not the Muslims. Their sources is not the Imams. Their sources is the Quran and the Muhammad. That's what they are following.
Okay, now Hatun, the ones that don't do this, the ones that don't take trucks, the ones that don't use knives, the ones that don't use bombs, the vast majority of Muslims, many of them who are in the corner, even in this crowd today, they are not the problem, are they?
They are not the problem. The problem is the Quran.
Why don't they do what the Quran says? Why is it that they don't follow what the Quran says?
Oh, they are minority right now.
I would suggest because they're here in this country because of the Quran. They have left their own societies. They have left their own Muslim countries because, see, we're blamed for that. We destroyed their society. Did we, the British government, destroy the Muslim societies around the world?
No.
32 Muslim societies. And yet they're all coming to live here because of what the Quran has done to their societies. There's something here that they like.
And
There's something about Britain that attracts them.
It's called democracy.
It's called democracy.
Here's the
And
other
where
thing.
does democracy come from?
Oh, well, when you look at the laws, they come from the Judeo-Christian.
Judeo-Christian,
Yeah,
the
10
priesthood of
commandments.
all believers.
Yeah, 10 commandments.
Also, no, the First Peter, the priesthood of all believers, that we are all priests. There is no hierarchy. We are all equal before man. There is no Jew nor Greek, man or woman, slave or free. All are equal in Jesus Christ. Galatians 3, verse 28.
Here's the other thing, Jay. We see lots of Muslims are peaceful, and those Muslims are identified according to Quran and according to Islamic teachings are the hypocrites. So they are not considered as real Muslims.
And that's why those who then commit these atrocities, they also kill Muslims, do they not?
They do.
And what does ISIS say? And what do the radicals say when they kill other Muslims? What do they call them?
Hypocrites.
Hypocrites.
So they are not identified as Muslim by other Muslims.
And what is the reason they call them hypocrites?
Because they are not practicing. They are not practicing the teachings of the Quran, and they are not practicing the teachings of Muhammad.
Isn't that interesting? Even ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al Shabaab, in every case, what do they say? We go only to the Quran, and we go only to the Prophet Muhammad. To the Quran for our authority, and Muhammad as our model. In every case, they say the same thing. It's the same narrative everywhere. Why hasn't our government woken up to that? Why hasn't the British government decided, well, maybe we should go to the Quran to find out why they are following these verses?
It is because they want to be politically correct. And other thing is, they don't have the solutions. It is only Christians, it is only the freedom God given us, and freedom Britain given us at Speaker's Corner. We can come and express our freedom of speech.
I think they have another agenda. I think they do know what's in the Quran. And they do know what Muhammad did. And they do not want Muslims to go there and find out what the Quran says or what Muhammad did. Because what Muhammad did with those who opposed him, look what at Asma bint Marwan.
Yeah.
What was her crime?
She didn't have a crime, but according to Islamic tradition, her crime was writing a poem against Muhammad. And she was killed while her baby was suckling her. She had a baby in her breast while baby was having food. Followers of Muhammad came and killed her because the poem Muhammad get offended. Very sensitive prophet. Didn't even have a thick skin. He got offended and he ordered killing this woman.
Now, did Jesus get offended in his lifetime?
No?
Yes, he did. He got offended many times.
Yeah, but he didn't go out and then kill them.
Did people offend Jesus? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, yes.
So Jesus was offended over and over again. Yes. What happened when Jesus got offended? Did he ever ask anybody to protect him?
No.
Did he ask anybody to go and kill somebody because they offended him?
No.
Did he take the offense Every time he did.
Bless you.
When they mocked him, did he not take it?
Yeah,
when
he
they
did
put
take it.
The,
He did.
the throne, the thorn
Crown on his.
crown of thorns on his head. That was mockery.
Yeah.
When they whipped him, you've seen
That
the
was a
movie.
mockery.
When he dragged that cross
when
through
he
the
was
streets.
naked, that was a mockery. But Jesus did not say, go and get rid of those people on behalf of
Never.
me. He
Even
never
when
did that.
his disciples tried to defend him.
Jesus
The
said,
one
put your
time
sword
his
back.
disciples tried to defend him when Peter tried to defend him there in the Garden of Gethsemane and cut off the ear of the servant. What did Jesus say? Nice, well done, Peter. Thank you for helping me out. Finally, I've got a disciple that wants to defend me. Is that what he said?
No, that would be Muhammad. But Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said, put your sword back.
Away. For he who lives
Yeah,
by the sword
die by
dies
your
the
sword.
Oh, I love Jesus. Oh, I love Jesus. So really, the Muslims here who are in London, who are in Britain, who do not want to use violence, who really are people of peace. The reason they're people of peace is because they live in Britain. And here in Britain, we follow a Judeo-Christian environment. We follow a Judeo-Christian model based on the Bible.
Yep.
And particularly based on the person of Jesus Christ. We're going to do that next and show you how that works.
So, Muslims are peace. Muslims live in peace in Britain with one another. But the problem is, Quran is not peaceful book, and Muhammad is not peaceful person. Those are the problem. Muslims are not the problem. Problem is their book and their prophet. It is bad and it is very dangerous to mankind.
So
that's
we
the problem.
started out, Hatun, today asking, what was the motivation for these men, these three men yesterday, not even 24 hours ago? Why did they drive that van across the bridge, knock those people down, then take out their knives and slice up? 48 people were wounded, 7 were killed. What was their motivation? We were told by the Muslims, have you noticed? All the Muslims have now left, except one over there. They don't want to stay. And the reason they have left is because they could not read these verses in the Quran. These Quran verses are very clear. Slay the unbeliever wherever ye find them. Cut off the heads of the unbeliever, it says.
It is seriously sad.
Surah 8, ayah 39. Slay the unbeliever until there is no more unbelief in the land. See, there goes another Muslim. He doesn't want to talk about it.
Cause terror in their hearts.
We have to talk about it, don't we?
We have to talk about it because they are human beings who are made in God's image and God died for them. It is not another human being's job to take other person's life because they do not share the same belief.
There you go.
That is just wrong.
I'm so glad I follow Jesus Christ.
I'm glad
because
as well.
Jesus really is the man of peace, right? Jesus really is the character of peace. Oh, there goes some police now. Looks like there's every time we hear sirens, we think, oh dear, not again. Because it's happening so often now here in Britain.
Yeah.
But I want to thank God that we follow Jesus. Hutton, why do you follow Jesus Christ? And what is it about Jesus Christ that gets you excited?
Why I follow Jesus is not he's only because of the man of the peace, because he is the one who gives us eternal life. He is the one who brings us back to the relationship man broke it. He is the one who brings us back to God. He is God himself who incarnated and dwelt among us and showed us how to live.
Folks, did you hear what she said? Can you see, because of what these three men did yesterday, we have to talk about it. Only at Speaker's Corner are we permitted. Now, earlier, quite a few Muslims said that we were hate mongers for bringing this subject up. This is the only place where we can talk about it.
If Muslims are accusing you to be hate preacher, then we have to say Quran is a hate preacher. Muhammad is a hate preacher because we are just sharing what they are teaching us.
We only went to the Quran today. We could have gone to the traditions.
Yeah.
We could have gone to Al-Bukhari. We could have gone to Abu Dawud.
I've got Sahih Bukhari in my bag, which Muhammad says actually greatest commandments, I'm rephrasing, that is the jihad. There is nothing like jihad.
There you go.
Versus, Jesus says like love your enemies. Love God, love your enemies.
For those who are watching this, make sure that you follow the right man. And make sure that you follow the right book. Do not not go to the Quran. We've shown you that today, because if you do go to the Quran with verses like Surah 9:5, Surah 9:29, Surah 47 ayah 4, Surah 8 ayah 39, there's 149 of these verses. All these verses talk about violence. No wonder the three men did what they did yesterday. They're just following the Quran. Other Muslims do not do that. And we thank God that they're here in Britain today, because they will not follow those verses in the Quran. But
Let's pray
what
for
they're
that.
following is not the Quran but the Bible. And they're not following Muhammad. Look and see what he did to the Jews in Medina. Look and see what he did to Asma bin Marwan. Look and see the example of Muhammad, and then look at Jesus. And when you get to Jesus, Hatun, all you can find is a man of peace. Ooh, I love Jesus.
Jay, remember, it's not only what Muhammad did to Marwa. Muhammad had approximately 20 people who is been responsible or took part of killing them. It's not only one person, plus 800 Jewish people.
Listen.
It's not only one person.
Jesus of all people should have had retribution. He should have had all kinds of defense. He should have asked the angels to come back. And what did Jesus do on the cross? When he was up on the cross looking at those who had killed him, what did he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Oh, I love Jesus!
Jesus!
Who is the King of Kings?
Jesus!
Who is the Lord of Lords?
Jesus!
Who is God in heaven?
Jesus!
Who is God on earth?
Jesus!
Who died on the cross?
Jesus!
Who then rose again?
Jesus!
Who is now in heaven?
Jesus!
Who waits for you and me?
Jesus!
Who wants to bring you home?
Jesus!
What's his name?
Jesus!
What's his name?
Jesus!
Can't hear you.
Jesus!
Hey!
Beautiful
Folks,
name.
we give you Jesus. Really, he is the answer for today. And his gospel is the only message we have for you today.
Amen.
If we only would follow Jesus, we would not have the atrocities we had yesterday.
That's right.
Come on home. Come on back to Jesus.